Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The 11th incarnation of the Lord took the form of a tortoise, whose shell served as a pivot for the Mandarācala Hill, which was being used as a churning rod by the theists and the atheists of the universe. Purport. Once both the atheists and the theists were engaged in producing nectar from the sea, so that all of them could become deathless by drinking it. At that time, the Mandarācala Hill was used as the churning rod, and the shell of Lord Tortoise, the incarnation of Godhead, became the resting place, pivot, of the hill in the seawater. So we'll go to the text number 17. Dhanvantaram dvadasamam tridodasamameva cha apayayat suran anyan mohinya mohayan striya. In the 12th incarnation, the Lord appeared as Dhanvantari, and in the 13th, he allured the atheists by the charming beauty of a woman and gave nectar to the demigods to drink. Om Gyana Tamarandasya Gyanam Sanatsalakaya Chakshustamya Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitami Bhutale Swayam Rupakatamayan Didanti Svabhadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Panchakalpa Tubhischa Kripasindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So the verses again. The 11th incarnation of the Lord took the form of a tortoise, whose shell served as a pivot for the Mandarācala Hill, which was being used as a churning rod by the theists and the atheists of the universe. In the 12th incarnation, the Lord appeared as Dhanvantari, and in the 13th, he allured the atheists by the charming beauty of a woman and gave nectar to the demigods to drink. So this is a very wonderful pastime that's described in the 8th canto, and these two verses kind of go together. So it's nice that Ramananda put these together, because this is in the same pastime. There's so many incarnations of Krishna. We can see they come. There are as many as the oceans of the wave, or as the falls falling from the, as we could see here in this picture. And we could see the different incarnations of Krishna. There's Kurma, there's Dhanvantari. The opposite side, there's Mohini Moti. So these are just a few, and there's unlimited numbers of incarnations of Krishna that are described. I mean, they are not described, but just a few are described here, actually. So this is a nice verse that I found. It kind of encourages us to really get absorbed in these pastimes. And it says, the endeavor of one who constantly hears or describes this narration of the churning of the ocean of milk will never be fruitless. Indeed, chanting the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the only means to annihilate all the sufferings in this material world. So there's several chapters in the 8th canto that describes this pastime, how the demigods, they were defeated actually at that time, and they're wondering how they could, get free from, or just get a better position. So they had actually made a truce with the demons to churn the ocean of milk. And by churning this ocean, they would get this nectar, which would make them both immortal. So they actually came together, and they had this truce. So this is amazing pastime. And Prabhupada talks about that, how what happened in this particular thing may not tally with our brain, our experience. We're getting knowledge from the Vedic literatures. And as far as the sages are concerned, this is our real authority and we should accept it without hesitation. This is actually seen through the eyes of the Shastra. It's called Shastra Chaksurat. And we can't deny what we hear, this huge ocean of milk that's stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, because we haven't seen it. I mean, if you can actually travel, go to all the different planets in the universe, and and see and experiment yourself, then you could see it for yourself. Then you could have proof. But that experiment's not possible. So we just have to accept the statements of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and they're given to us by spiritual leaders like Sridhar Swami, Jiva Goswami, Vaishnava Chakravarti Thakur, and so many more. So this is the Vedic process, is to follow in the footsteps of great authorities, and that's the only way for knowing what's going on beyond our imagination. The Supreme Lord, being all-powerful, He does whatever He likes. He can assume the form of a tortoise, a fish, whatever, and they all serve particular purposes. And that's not at all astonishing for Krishna. Therefore, we shouldn't have any hesitation whatsoever in accepting these statements from the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's a nice question that was asked by Gandhi to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami. There was 10 questions. This is from a chapter in the book that Bhakti Vikas Swami put together on Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami. It's a pretty thorough book, very nice book. And Gandhiji was asking, how is the authoritativeness of the Shastras to be proved? And this is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami's answer. And you could just see his scholarly, is like a walking encyclopedia. He was actually described as by some people, and very intelligent person. But he says here that you can't be proved by your empiric methods. You see, because the senses, they're imperfect. And because the absolute truth is beyond the scope of our human senses. And so the testimony of the senses on which the empiricists rely, it's not available for finding out the absolute truth. The absolute truth only reveals Himself to the senses of the soul by counteracting the opposition of the superimposed preventing apparatus of the physical senses. The transcendental sound appearing on the lips of his devotee has power of making himself heard by the ear of the soul. Those persons who are privileged to hear the transcendental sound alone possess the knowledge of the reality, which is only true knowledge. These persons are able to convey the truth to the conditioned souls by the process of oral communication. The Shastras, which are symbolized records of the transcendental sound, are not intelligible till the contents are heard in the form of articulated sound from the lips of a self-realized souls. This is the one process of the descent of the Absolute to this mundane plane. This process is part of the Vedic revelation. There is no other method for approaching the Absolute. The negative testimony to the authoritative character of the scriptural records is in keeping with the requirements of empiric judgment. To this is to be added the positive testimony of a long series of self-realized souls who have attained spiritual enlightenment by following the scriptural method. The more one devotes his unbiased attention to the arguments and recorded experience of this large number of pure souls, the balance of probability is discovered to lie toward convinced faith in the authoritative character of the scriptures and their being identical with the Word, who is God. It's amazing. It is only by submissive inquiry for the purpose of offering one's unconditional and exclusive service to the Absolute and to nothing else that the mercy of the Absolute requires to be solicited. Empiric arrogance is akin to the ridiculous, immoral, ungrateful, irrational attitude of the grain of sand on the seashore, aspiring to carry in its pores the great ocean, whose tiny constituent it is. It is lack of humility before the Absolute that is responsible for being saddled with the paraphernalia of the conditioned state for the elaborate display of our self-elected folly. The Shastras are identical with the Master and reserve the right of being not exposed to the limited mentality of man if he is approached by the challenging etheric mood. Godhead is autocrat, and his authority is above all challenge. His own word is his sole testimony. Spiritual enlightenment is a matter of grace, not of right. To realize that this must be so is the only proof of the possession of real sincerity of disposition. But such disposition toward the Absolute is also the gift of the causeless mercy of the Absolute himself. You see the power of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's preaching. So powerful and so deep. So here we have, as the story goes on, we see that the demons were trying to bring this Mandarācala Hill. It's actually solid gold. And they moved it a little, but it actually fell on them and was crushing them and breaking their shoulders and their arms and their legs. And Krishna had to come, picked it up with one hand, very easily, like a mushroom, and picks it up and puts it on Garuda's back. And then he carries it on. And he glances over everybody, the demons and the demigods that all died and broke their limbs. And he brought them back to life. So he put it on Garuda, and they flew to the ocean of milk. Excuse me. And Garuda landed, and Garuda actually picked it up and put it down. They put it on the ocean of milk. And then after Garuda put it down, then Lord Vishnu there asked him to leave that place because he knew that they were going to ask Vasuki, the huge snake, to come by. And of course we know Garuda is not a vegetarian and he likes to feast on snakes. So they asked Garuda to leave. So then they put it in the ocean of milk, and then what happened is that, they tried to steady it and set it in such a way, brought Vasuki, but then there was nothing to support it. It couldn't support it, so it kept falling over. So then Krishna had to appear, as is today's verse, as the Kurma incarnation. They set it on his back. It was a very nice, offering prayers to Lord Kurma. O my Lord, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who have assumed the form of a tortoise. You are the reservoir of all transcendental qualities, and being entirely untinged by matter, you are perfectly situated in pure goodness. You move here and there in the water, but no one can discern your position. Therefore I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Because of your transcendental position, you are not limited by past, present, and future. You are present everywhere as the shelter of all things, and therefore I offer my respectful obeisances unto you again and again. So just see how beautiful. It's amazing. Krishna not only had to bring the mountain, and then they had to put the mountain on his back, and then Krishna actually sat on top of the mountain, and then as the demigods and demons were actually churning the ocean, the demigods who actually, when Krishna went and showed, set up Vasuki properly, he went towards the head of Vasuki and started to pull, and then the demigods followed him. But then the demons thought, why should we get the rear end of the snake, the inauspicious side? Why can't we get the head? So then Krishna, one of the rules was that the demigods would cooperate with the demons, whatever they wanted. So they did. So they gave them the head part of the snake to pull. So, but anyway, what happened is that Vasuki was breathing fire through his mouths as they were pulling him, and he scorched all the demons, and they got all black from the smoke and everything. So anyway, there was kind of a disadvantage. And we could see from this picture here, you can see there's different things are starting to emanate from the ocean. First, we know that there was this poison that Lord Shiva had to drink to save the universe, and he drank it, being merciful, and saved everyone from becoming poisoned. And then after that, then different things started to come. Lakshmi came. They did a bathing ceremony for her. Puja, it was so nice. There's the elephant, the horse came. Different things came. And there's another prayer here we could say about Lord Keshava. Very nice. This is from the Keshavadrita Kurmasarira Jaya Jaya Di Jagadishare. O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, you have assumed the form of a tortoise. All glories to you. In this incarnation as a divine tortoise, the great Mandara mountain rests upon your gigantic back as a pivot for churning the ocean of milk. From holding up a large mountain, a large scar-like depression is put on your back, which has become most glorious. Here's another nice prayer. You appeared as a tortoise just to become the resting place. And this happened because you were feeling some itching sensation on your back. So you accepted this big rod, Mandarācala Hill, to itch as the itching instrument. So Prabhupada writes, there's a nice lecture he gave actually on this particular verse. And these two verses actually gave class on. And here he brought the point about how we shouldn't think that we're all in all. How can we understand things? You know, as human scientists think they're all in all. They're the monarch of all they survey. They're going to figure everything out. But in God's creation, there's smaller than the smallest and bigger than the biggest. And nobody can claim that I'm everything. Just like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was saying, just like the sand, a grain of sand on the beach, you know, so puffed up, thinking that he could, you know, bring the ocean in his pores. Can you imagine the pores of a pebble on the beach? This is what we're like. It's not possible, Prabhupada says. And how can we understand that they're standing in the ocean and it's up to their knees? How could that be? You know, we can't stand, you know. How even 7 miles of seawater and it's up to their knees. You know, it's like Prabhupada used the analogy of the ant. Even 7 inches is sufficient water for the ant. And for us, 7 feet is sufficient. But for them, you know, the demigods, 7 miles is not even sufficient. They could stand anywhere. So we can't think these are stories. You know, how can they stand on the ocean? How could they churn the ocean? You know, these are not stories. Prabhupada brings the point, and we can't understand them. So by Prabhupada's mercy, from the mouth of a pure devotee, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was saying, we can begin to understand things properly. Prabhupada used another nice analogy about that insect that in India they see it's called the Diwali polka. And in the evening they're born, they flock together, you know, they make all their sounds and cries, they have their fun, you know, they actually eat, sleep, mate, and defend. They go through their whole life. They take birth, they grow, they give out byproducts, they dwindle, and they die. So in the morning you see a big heap of them lying around. So that's it. So this is interesting how everything is relative. You know, there's the smallest and there's the largest. So similarly, if we try to talk to the fly and say, oh, you know, fly, you know, we're human beings. And this is only one night for us. You know, and then we have another period of the same amount of time, and that's the day. And we have 30 days, you know, like this. And then that makes a month. And then we have 12 of these months, that makes one of our years. And then we live 100 years. How's the fly going to understand? So similarly, how are we going to understand the duration of Brahma's life or think that these things are stories that we're hearing? This is not a story. So all the information of the Vedic literatures, everything is there. Their relative life, biggest, small, smaller than the smallest, bigger than the biggest. So Prabhupada just brings about this point again and again that these are not stories. And we can't accommodate with our poor teeny brains any more than a pebble of sand can try to put the ocean in his pores. That's so funny. So how can we understand God? That's not possible. But Prabhupada says we can. If we actually use these particular senses that we have, and we use them for Krishna, because what do we have? What is our seeing power? We can only see a little portion. Imagine the whole universe. We cannot fly there, as Prabhupada said, and go and confirm that there's oceans of milk, that there's different types of oceans, huge mountains, huge beings. We can't confirm these things. So therefore the Shastras say, Atashi Krishna namadi namaved grayam indriyaha. You cannot understand Krishna with your imperfect senses. That's not possible. But how is it possible? My only asset is these blunt senses. How can I understand God? Prabhupada again quotes, Sevan mukhihi javadu swamiva sporadiyada. If you engage in devotional service, then God will reveal to you, here I am. Here I am. I am like this. Can you imagine Krishna saying, oh, here I am. Arjuna, he saw Krishna. He understood God. And he was submissive. Shishastiham sadimam papanam. So this surrender is very important. You surrender God, then by God's kindness, He'll reveal it to you. So otherwise, our calculations about what's going on here, we cannot understand what is the greatest or even what is the smallest. So then what happened is, from this churning of the ocean, the same pastime, actually Dhanvantari appeared. A very wonderful male person appeared with like this, with a pot in his hand. And it describes him. This is very nicely described, what he looked like. I think this was also in the 8th canto. And how he is strongly built, very strong arms. Described all his features, his complexion. He's very young, flower-gardened. And what he was wearing, it describes what he was wearing, how his hair was even anointed with oil, like this. Very strong, like a lion. And he was a plenary portion of Lord Vishnu. And he was very conversant with the science of medicine. And he was considered as one of the demigods, so he was permitted to take share in the sacrifices. But it's interesting, even though he was a plenary portion of Krishna, as soon as he appeared, the demigods immediately snatched the pot of nectar from him. And they were going to keep it for themselves. And then the demigods were like, well, come on, we're supposed to share. And so even some of the more powerful demons were keeping it from other less powerful demons. So then the less powerful demons were actually appealing on the behalf of the demigods so that, everybody could get a share. Come on, we made a truce, we're supposed to share it equally amongst everybody. We all deserve to have some. We all endeavored to do this churning. So come on, share it. You know how it is. So they're arguing like this. And then finally they appealed to Krishna. They went to Krishna to appeal to him. What can we do? And Krishna says that, don't worry, I'll come. But anyway, here's some nice information about Dhanvantari. How he quickly cures diseases of the ever-diseased living entities simply by his fame personified. And only because of him do the demigods achieve long lives. So here we know that he inaugurated the medical science, or the science of medicine, in the entire universe. And here it's stated in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam that everything emanates ultimately from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And here, so it's understood that the medical science also was inaugurated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of Dhanvantari. And this is an interesting sentence here. Prabhupada writes, the Vedas are a source of all knowledge, and thus knowledge in medical science is also therefore the perfect cure of all diseases of the living entity. But here, the embodied living entity is diseased by the very construction of his body. The body is the symbol of diseases. The body is a disease. So it may differ from one variety to another, but disease is there, just as birth and death is there for everyone. So Prabhupada says here, so by the grace of the personality of Godhead, not only are diseases of the body and mind cured, but also the soul is relieved of the constant repetition of birth and death. And that's why the Lord is called Bhavoshadi, or the source of curing the disease of material existence. So here's a nice prayer. This is from the Narayan Kavacha, that may the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in His incarnation as Dhanvantari, relieve me from indesirable edibles and protect me from physical illness. You know, to live in the material world, one has to face many dangers. You know, undesirable food possesses danger to our health, so therefore we must give up such food. And this Dhanvantari incarnation can protect us in this regard. So what happened is that demigods, as I was mentioning, they appealed to Krishna, and he said, don't worry, I'll come and appear, and I will actually bewilder the demons. I'll steal the nectar from them. So here, Mohini Murti appeared, assuming the form of a young woman, and thus bewildering the demons. The Supreme Personality of Godhead distributed to His devotees, the demigods, the nectar produced from the churning of the ocean milk. Unto that Supreme Personality of Godhead, who always fulfills the desires of His devotees, I offer my respectful obeisances. So, it's interesting how Mohini Murti appeared and the demigods, I mean, she's so beautiful. Can you imagine Krishna appearing as a woman, as beautiful as it is, and coming in attractive features as a woman? The demons were very much attracted, because the demons are very attractive. They like the opposite sex. So they were very much attracted, and she was giving them furtive glances, and they were very attracted to her. And she said, oh, who are you? Where are you coming from? You know, come over here and talk to us. And they wanted to have a relationship with her. So she was talking with them and flirting, you know, like this. And then she said, oh, we have a problem before us. Maybe you can help us figure this out. You know, how to divide the nectar equally among us. She said, okay, you know, after all, I should warn you that I'm a prostitute, and, you know, a woman who's independent, you know, shouldn't be trusted. You know, they go from newer men to newer relationships to newer relationships. So, but still, she warned them, and still they said, no, you can decide for us, and whatever you say, we'll agree. So she said, okay. So she took the pot of nectar, and then she came to the demons first, and she gave them sweet words and talking to them, and they're all pacified. But then she started just giving the nectar to the demigods. And because they were so attached to her and didn't want to mess up their relationship with her, they decided not to be quiet, so that they won't disturb their so-called relationship. So this is the nature of a demon. But one of them was pretty smart. It was Rahu. He dressed like a demigod, and he went to the side of the demigods. But he was detected because, you know, this Rahu is always the demon to the different demigods, different planets. They represent different planets. So it was detected, and as soon as he was detected, Mohini Murti came, and she cut off his head. But here Prabhupada writes regarding this pastime that to have a very charming wife is not very good. Even Chanakapana says that there's 4 kinds of enemies in family life. And that is, Chanakapana Sura is a very beautiful wife, she is an enemy. And Prabhupada gave a nice example about his own life on a lecture that he gave on this particular verse, that when he was a married man, and somehow or another he didn't like his wife, even though she was very faithful and everyone praised her. And so he was preparing for his next marriage, because that was allowed at that time in India. So he was making all kinds of arrangements. And then one time his father called him, and he said, my dear boy, you're trying to marry again. I request you don't do that. You do not like your wife? That is a great fortune for you. So he gave up that idea of marrying. And so now he's realizing that it was such a blessing, that if he had been too much attached to his wife, then he would have not been able to come to this position. So from so many points of view, ethical point of view, spiritual point of view, to become too attached to a wife is an impediment for spiritual life. So Prabhupada said, you see, I think I did not see my wife beautiful. Therefore, I had to take sannyas. So this is what the wife should be considered to be very religious. she executes religious life with the husband, for the purpose of making spiritual advancement. Otherwise, they'll become simply absorbed in sense gratification, and they will actually forget their real duty to become Krishna conscious. So that's actually real ideal grihastha life, real ideal family life. That they both make progress in Krishna conscious and raise Krishna conscious children. So here's a picture where Mohini Murti actually cuts off the head of Rahu, the demon who dressed up like a demigod, to try to get the nectar, but the nectar reached his throat already, so his head became immortal, so his head is just floating around and is still inimical towards the planets. That's why it's always the eclipses, we see the eclipse. It's due to him trying to swallow, I guess, the planets, as they say. So, even Lord Shiva, he was desiring to see this form of Mohini Murti. It was kind of a joking affair, Prabhupada writes. We know that Lord Shiva can be agitated by so-called beautiful women. So his thinking like that. The daityas may have been bewildered, but since even the demigods can be agitated when she appears, so what to speak of me? I'm the best of the demigods. So this is Lord Shiva. He's wanting to see Lord Vishnu as a form of a woman, and then, actually, he appeared and said, yeah, okay, I'll show you in the form of a woman, but if you become agitated by lusty desires, don't blame me. So the attractive features of a woman are appreciated by those who are affected by lusty desires. And it's, it's a platform of those who are on the platform of Krishna consciousness. It's very difficult to bewilder. But nonetheless, Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was able to bewilder the mind of Lord Shiva. So here, Lord Shiva, after he completely fell for Mohini Murti, he approached his wife and told her that, have you seen this illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the unborn master of everyone? Although I'm one of the principal expansions of his lordship, even I was illusioned by his energy. What then is to be said of others who are fully dependent on Maya? So this is the power of Krishna. So Prabhupada writes how Lord Shiva couldn't be victimized by Maya. So therefore, actually, he was being harassed by Lord Vishnu's internal potency. You see, and Krishna has various potencies, and he could do anything that he wants with any of them. So here it is said. So this is done not by a woman, but actually Lord Vishnu, who harassed Lord Shiva. So here Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur remarks that how, Lord Shiva was chasing Mohini Murti, and he was chasing her to where all these great sages were, and just to show that, don't think yourselves free, but remain extremely cautious about beautiful women. No one should think that himself liberated in the presence of a beautiful woman. So Prabhupada relates that to actually beautiful woman, beautiful man. It's the same for both sexes like that. So Krishna was assumed the form of a woman, and after that, Lord Shiva actually became very agitated, and it's described how he was so agitated that he actually lost his semen, and wherever his semen landed, they were turned to be gold and silver mines. So after this happened, Lord Shiva came back to his senses, and Krishna appeared to him and says, and then blessed him actually, and said that may you resume your normal, unagitated condition. And Prabhupada writes how this is the position of a devotee. A devotee shouldn't be agitated under any circumstances, even in the worst reverses. So, and that's the first class devotee who Lord Shiva is. So Prabhupada says this is the best practice of yoga is this bhakti yoga. There's no impediments. And as far as this material body exists, we have to meet the demands of eating, sleeping, defending, mating. But a person who is in pure Krishna consciousness, he doesn't arouse the senses while meeting the demands of the body. Rather, he accepts the bare necessities of life and makes the best use of a bad bargain. And then what does he do? Just enjoys happiness in Krishna consciousness. And is callous towards all any incidental occurrences, things that may happen, accidents, disease. But he's always alert in his Krishna consciousness and accents never deviating from his duty. He endures all incidental occurrences because he knows they come and go and don't affect his duties. So we'll read how Bhaktisiddhanta actually said something like this, similar to this, in his last words, which we'll get to. So here we can see Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one can excel him. There's nothing superior to him. And Lord Shiva was actually very proud to have such an exalted master that bewildered him. Here's a nice verse, how Lord Krishna alone is the Supreme Controller and all others are his servants. They dance as he makes them dance. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wrote a song, the Dustimana, and I picked out a few verses here that kind of relate to this falling victim of beauty, fame, such things of the material world. And he says, such a soul is actually detached from material life and is known as a pure devotee. Someone who, with this consciousness of detachment, has thereby become victorious over the mundane world of birth and death. And one is indeed detached who moderately partakes of worldly things that are deemed necessary for living in devotional service. A devotee acting in that manner does not fall prey to the disease of material infatuation. Thus devoid of selfish attachment and endowed with the ability to see things in relation to the Lord, all sense objects are then directly perceived as being Lord Madhava himself. This is a standard of befitting renunciation, and one who realizes this is most fortunate indeed. Everything involved in such a devotee's life represents Lord Hari's personal spiritual opulence, as manifest in the world of matter. On the other hand, one who engages in chanting the Lord's name with hopes of enhancing his own material reputation finds that all his activities and paraphernalia represent only the riches of hypocrisy. So that's a nice segue into the disappearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He was born on February 6, 1874, and he passed away January 1st, 1937. And Prabhupada really picked up his mood in a nice Vyasa Puja offering. He wrote a poem. Absolute is sentient, thou hast proved, impersonal calamity thou hast moved. That's just one line from it. He wrote several verses describing his mood, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami really liked that, and he showed it to everybody, and he appreciated him a lot for understanding his mood, how he was very heavy with people who thought that the Absolute was impersonal, it wasn't sentient, and he thought it was a calamity. He removed that calamity. So the appearance, disappearance days of the Acharyas, it's like the sunrise and the sunset, they're both very beautiful. So similarly, both the appearance and the disappearance of the Vaishnavas are beautiful. So there's no cause of lamentation. So we lament for the loss of his association, but they also celebrate. There's a fasting and feasting on that day. There's the nice prayers glorifying Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in his pranati. And I won't read all this, we don't have time, but it's very nice. Nice chanting. I'll read the last one. Offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who are the personified teachings of Lord Chaitanya. You are the deliverer of the fallen souls. You do not tolerate any statement which is against the teachings of devotional service enunciated by Srila Rupa Goswami. So this is his mood. And when Prabhupada was asked about his spiritual master, he said, what can I say? He's a Vaikuntha man. In Krishna Lila, actually Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is considered to be Kamalaman Manjari, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati is his eternal assistant, Nayana Manjari. And this is interesting how this relates to the class today, how when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was 7 years old, his father moved to Calcutta, to the Bhakti Bhavan house he was building there. And while digging the foundation, they found the deity of Lord Kurma. And then Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave him his first initiation and the name Siddhanta Saraswati, and initiated his son into the worship of Lord Kurma. He was doing this every single day without missing, even when he was admitted into school. So that's pretty interesting. So there's kind of some interesting things about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, that I found you could find. There's so many resources, and I just kind of put a few things here together. How he was known as the lion, the Simha Guru, because, as we mentioned, his fearless, ferocious preaching. Even if any person that saw him on the street, they would cross in fear that he would come at them, and he'd shake them violently with his huge body towering over them and say, "Why do you say the Lord is no form? Nonsense offender!" And we know his father was a deputy magistrate in Puri. He was there for 3 years. And that's when he prayed to have someone help him. Because there were so many asampradayas. So therefore he prayed for a ray of Vishnu, so that he can help him and boldly establish his pure teachings. Even the Padma Purana predicted Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would appear, that a pure and learned personality would appear in the Purushottam Kshetra to spread the glories of Lord Jagannath all over the world. And we know when he was 6 years old, the Rath Yatra was held, and the cart stopped in front. And that's when the mother went and put the child up on the cart to get the blessings, and Lord Jagannath put a garland around him. And that was nice. The Pujari explained to the boy, particularly blessed by Lord Jagannath. And then we know it was his first grain ceremony, when he was giving signs of teeth. And they put the coin and the book in front of the child, and he was known as Bimala. He chose the Bhagavatam instead of the coin. And then when his father became senior deputy magistrate, and that's when he ate the mango when he was 5 years old. He ate the ripe mango that was meant for the deity, so then he never took a ripe mango again. But they said that he took green mango chutney from his disciples, and one of his favorites, so it's the first time I heard of that. But he was a very expert student. He preferred to study his father's books instead of, but he actually did study in school. And this is where it describes, he never fell behind in school. He'd remember everything after hearing it once. And this is an interesting, I didn't know about this, that he actually had his older brother, he delivered him, Achyutananda. I guess he had made an offense in his past life. And so he had this nervous disease, and he became very sick. So Bimala Prasad, as he was known then, took kartals and chanted the Hare Krishna mantra for 6 days without eating. And then this Ramanuja Sampradaya tilak appeared on Achyutananda's forehead, and he said, "Actually, I'm a Ramanuja Vaishnava. I committed an offense to a Gaudiya Vaishnava in my last life, and therefore I had to take this birth. And now I'm relieved," and then he left his body. So Bimala, he passed his entrance examination into the Sanskrit College of Calcutta, and he spent many times studying there, and taking lessons from different teachers there. But he said he didn't continue his college studies for very long. At age 13, he started higher education, and he was initiated into the chanting of the Hare Krishna. He took the Nrsimha mantra from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and at that time he invented a shorthand script called Vikanta. He was so genius. And then at 18, he entered the Capital Sanskrit College, and he mastered the Sanskrit studies, all the 6 limbs of Sanskrit, at 18 years old. And then 22, he left college to avoid taking householder life. He took up work under the king of Tripura, and that whole state actually was a Vaishnava. That king was a disciple of Narottama Das Thakur. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati became the Raj Pandit for 3 years, and he retired with a full pension. And then he accepted it for a few years, and he voluntarily stopped the pension. So around that time, he took initiation from Gaudacandra Prabhu. And it's interesting how Bhaktivinoda Thakur used to give these classes every day on Srimad Bhagavatam, and Gaudacandra Prabhu would come every day. And Bhaktivinoda told him to accept initiation from him. So, he asked him, he said, please give me mercy. And then Gaudacandra Das said, actually, mercy is not mine to give. It's the property of Lord Chaitanya himself. I'll ask it. And if he agrees, I'll give it to you. So they met again, and Bhaktisiddhanta asked him, did you ask him? And he said, oh, no, I forgot. So the third time he said, the same thing happened. No, I forgot. So then Bhaktisiddhanta said, you worship that great cheat, Krishna, who's cheating everyone. And so you're also cheating me. But if you continue this way, I will simply give up my life, because my life is useless without receiving your mercy. So then he initiated him. And then at that time, he gave up all their activities, and he chanted 194 rounds a day for 7 years. He had a little kutir, and he didn't even spend time repairing it. If it rained, he just used an umbrella. So this is interesting, this story, how there's one disciple of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He wanted to continue his mission, and he was looking for his son, knowing that he was also a powerful personality, and he was asking around for him. So they said, no, we don't know anybody. There's a sadhu we know, a madman. He's always in the jungle there, and he's shouting out, these names, Hare Krishna, Hari Bol, Nitagore, Hari Bol. And then he would plunge fully dressed in the Ganga, and he kept splashing and shouting, the names of Krishna. And he approached him and he requested him to come to Calcutta to head up the Sankirtan mission. And then Bhaktisiddhanta answered, Sankirtan? Can't you see the wonderful Sankirtan mission of Sri Chaitanya right here in the holy Dham of Navadvip? Is it not wonderful? Sri Panchatattva are chanting and dancing in ecstasy, surrounded by all their associates. Can you not see this? He must have been absorbed in the pastimes of the Panchatattva. So he ran off. And so then, sometime later in 1918, he actually appeared at this person's door in Calcutta in sannyasi robes and danda, freshly shaven. And he ordered, now we're founding the Society of the Sri Gaudiya Math. Drop the papers immediately and have it registered. So he arrived there about 4 p.m. and he said that he had all that work done by the end of the day. So he started his mission, the Gaudiya mission, in the midst of a war, actually. There was a national liberation agitation. But he was uncompromising, such mundane. This is just a mundane concern. The most important thing is to invoke the spirit of devotion to the Supreme Lord. This concern lies far above any material consideration. Even though many objected, he still continued. So during that time, he met the aristocratic young Abhay Charan Day. Later, as we know, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So that's when he visited Srila Bhaktisiddhanta on the rooftop there in Utadanga Road. He was a adherent of the National Liberation Movement of Gandhi. But he convinced him in just one sitting the vital necessity of Lord Chaitanya's mission over everything else. So his life, he started 464 Gaudiya Math temples throughout India, and he wanted to spread it beyond India, like his father also desired. He actually gave Westerners initiation. He initiated 10 Westerners, mostly from Germany. And so during that time, Abhicharan, he forced him. He said that you are a... Yeah, that's all yours. So he said that, that it's very necessary that you must preach now. In this world there's no shortage of anything, only Krishna consciousness. So here's a couple more things about him. That when he would lead kirtan, Bhaktisiddhanta would lead kirtan, that all the traffic would stop wherever we go, and they accepted it as fully authorized wherever he would do his Harinam Sankirtan. So one time he went to take a bath in Pukor, and he was 7 steps above the surface of the water, and then the water rose 7 steps to touch his feet, and then all his brahmacharis jumped in to bathe in Charnamrita. So he got very sick 10 days before he left his body, and he wrote some nice last instructions. We'll read some more at the end here. I don't know if we have time to read the full version, but he wanted everybody to always chant Hare Krishna. The lotus feet, it's already 8:38, sorry. But, he would argue with many people, and they liked his arguing. So he left at the age of 62, and he entered again into the loving pastimes of Sri Radha Krishna in Brajaloka. And there's Pushpa Samadhis of him in Radhakund and Radha Damodar. So there's a couple of pictures I found on the internet. I'm not sure exactly where they are, but they're related to him. I don't know if anybody knows. They could mention that later. But here's one last point here. That Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he saw this vision of a wonderful golden mandir, and he began begging door to door to establish the yoga pit, which was in that area. And that was one of Viraj Swami gave a nice talk one year, and he was talking about that part of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur's mission was taken up by Srila Prabhupada, was to come to Mayapur, that Mayapur project. So the previous acharyas visioned a city there, a wonderful temple, and the beginning was when Bhaktivinoda Thakur discovered the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had actually instructed his disciples to build, houses there, and, start the city. But, a few did, but the dream of a spiritual city hasn't yet been fully realized. And there is the idea of building a wonderful temple. So Srila Prabhupada definitely wanted to build a spectacular temple there. And Prabhupada said, the quote here on top, that if you build this temple, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur will personally come and take you all back to Godhead. Isn't that amazing? So we actually have the opportunity to do that, every one of us. Because we know that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati installed the printing presses. He would install them in the Gaudiya Math. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta actually requested, Prabhupada, you're an intelligent young man. If you ever get money, print books in the English language. So Srila Prabhupada was so impressed that he took it as his life's mission. And some 11 years later, he took Diksha initiation from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, who told his other disciples, who printed the Sojana Toshi newspaper on his order, whatever Abhay writes, print it. So he knew that he was a great writer. So we actually have this opportunity ourselves. Prabhupada started the BBT, and actually the BBT of North America is one of the largest donors to this Mayapur project, to build in this temple. In fact, Prabhupada wanted the money that was collected on book distribution, 50% go to temple construction, and the other 50% for book publishing. So here under the leadership of Savas Prabhu in Los Angeles, he is every year given 50%, even though we had a struggle sometimes, and we still do to do that. We're one of the largest donors to this temple construction. So if you purchase books from the BBT, you distribute these books from the BBT, you're helping build this temple. And as Bhaktivinoda Thakur promised, that if you build this temple, actually Srila Prabhupada promised, if you build this temple, that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur will personally come and take you all back to Godhead. So we're so fortunate to be able to be involved in the mission of these great acharyas. So, as we know, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was very innovative, and this is from a talk that Viraj Swami was giving, how today we may compare it to our IMAX theaters or the animatronics, So he was like that. He, drove in a car, he did so many things like that. He wore dark pants, they wore vests, shoes, all these things. They did all these things, just to spread Krishna consciousness. So as he says, that we have these big festivals, museums, movies, whatever, these always, the basics will be there. This kirtan philosophy, but that is the merciful mood of our acharyas, not to be complacent, not to sit in a temple, eat rice and dal and ring the bell. Go out, think of ways somehow or another to engage people in Krishna consciousness. We have a great lineage, we have a big challenge, but I think we have a lot of good material too. I think if we can do it, Srila Prabhupada said, by the mercy of my Guru Maharaj, I did 100 times more than he did. Similarly, I want you all to do 100 times more than me. So that was a quote from Swami in the class he gave. And then how we should pray for the mercy so that we can help others, help ourselves and help others. So these were his last words here that he gave us, that, he begged forgiveness because he was, heavy with people, but he just wanted people to understand things properly, and how he advised us to preach the teachings of Rupa Goswami with all our energy and resources, so that we can get the dust of his lotus feet. And how here he says, as I mentioned earlier, that some another we should, without quarreling in this material world, just serve Krishna. Do not, he says, please give up the service of God in spite of all dangers. This is that Dhira, being, like Lord Shiva. All circumstances and all discomforts. Do not be disappointed, for most people of the world do not serve the personality of Godhead. Do not give up your own service, which is your everything and all. Neither reject the process of chanting and hearing or the transcendental holy name of Godhead. You should always chant the transcendental name of Godhead with patience and forbearance, like a tree, and humbleness like a straw. There are many amongst you who are well qualified and able workers. We have no other desire whatsoever. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. So sorry going over class here. But since it's a holy day, I hope it's not too late for devotees. Is there any discussion or comments? Maybe.
Guruji, was that 62 that you said that he left this world? And he was.
Yes, age 62.
Wow, so young.
Yeah, and amazing what he accomplished. And
like Prabhupada, like in the mood of Prabhupada.
Yeah, how old was Prabhupada when he passed away? Do you know?
No, but I mean, how much Prabhupada accomplished in such a short period of time.
More. He's saying.
Very nice guy.
Gaudacandra, is it possible to get that presentation you just did? That was very nice. I'd like to look at it again tomorrow.
Sure you can.
I'm going to have, Gauda, if you'd like to send me your PowerPoint, also later on today, within an hour or two, I'll have the video up.
Okay, so it'll be a PDF, so that's the format I have it in.
Okay, PDF is even easier.
Yeah, so that's nice. But there's some really nice quotes and a lot of things. I just kind of touched on things, but there's a lot of information, a lot of nectar. And I only grabbed a little bit. There's tons of videos, there's tons of lectures given about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta.
Where's that?
Oh, they're on the internet. If you just do a search, there's like ISKCON Desire Tree. There's the GaudiaHistory.org, I think. It's very nice. And yeah, so much resources. There was even a video out that showed, it says rare video of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and they show him. There's no voice, but they kind of show it. Looks like an old video of him, raising his hand and preaching and putting his hand down. But then there was like some other devotees were showing that it was actually a fake, that they actually copied and did stuff. Maybe they found some old stuff and they kind of pieced it together and make it look like a video, but you can see how it was fakely put together. It was pointing out all the fake in it. So if you see that video, you'll see how there's another video, some devotee, I think it was a Russian devotee, showed out how you can actually make things look like old videos. You can put in things and how they copied things and did stuff. So anyway, that's out there. A fake video of him. But wouldn't it be amazing to hear Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur give a class? It would be really powerful, but I don't think there's such a thing available. But we have Srila Prabhupada and his books and so many things. Actually, it said, as we were reading, that the word is actually Krishna. He's non-different from him. He reserves the right to refuse to anyone here. Actually, there's a couple more quotes here I found in that book. This is very nice. You guys can read this too. It's from different quotes from that book that Bhaktivedanta Swami put together. And this is very amazing how service to Krishna's devotees, and Sri Nam Kirtan, although different undertakings, are the same in essence. By Nam Sankirtan, service to Krishna and his devotees is performed. By Vaishnava Seva, Krishna Kirtan and Krishna Seva are performed. By Krishna Seva, Nam Sankirtan and Vaishnava Seva are performed. By reciting Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna Seva and Nama Sankirtan are performed. By reciting Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of devotees, the same results are achieved. By Archana, these three are also affected. And by Nam Bhajan, they are all excellently performed. It's amazing, huh? His insights and his realizations are just amazing. So there's a couple more quotes there. So anybody else have any discussion or comments, or is everybody ready to go?
Can you please read the quote on the bottom? Because not everybody can see this. It's just so great. Please.
Okay, this is a real famous one. After rising from sleep, take your shoes and beat your mind 100 times. And before retiring at night, take a broomstick and beat your mind 100 times. Then you can control your mind. Otherwise, it is very difficult. And then the last short quote, he said here, Krishna Prema Rasa should be our desired end. We should be Rasikas and Bhavukas and never become devoid of rasa. So, what a great personality. Just incomprehensible. You know, what he was able to accomplish, what he knew, what he put together, what he left, and how he empowered. I mean, his greatest gift was Srila Prabhupada. And we all are here because of him. So what great mercy.
In that verse you were just quoting, or the saying about upon rising from sleep, take your shoe and beat your mind 100 times. What's the shoe that you're beating the mind with?
Well, everyone has shoes. No, I don't know. I've heard different things, but we have to beat our mind with in place. It's like somehow or another, get up, force yourself. I was just thinking of that this morning when I was getting up. What's the shoe? And I was thinking, it's just like you have to beat your mind. You have to be the witness. The soul has to say, come on, beat it with words, preach to it. What are you doing? You're just wasting your life. Just wasting your life laying here. You have plenty of time to sleep when your body's dead. Now you're alive. Just do stuff. Get up. But we want to sleep. It's like, I just need a few more, just a little bit, and then you notice, we're waking up and the alarm goes off. You just hit it, and then you go, okay, I'll wake up in a minute, and then you wake up 2 hours later. It's like, oh my God. So at that point, when you first wake up, you have to beat your mind. No, don't take another nap. Get up. Go, take a shower. And then you preach to your mind about how many wonderful things you can do now. It's another day. You can serve Krishna. You could do this. You could do that. So much more things to do, and get engaged in the rasa, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur says here. So yeah. So that's like an analogy of the shoes. Just beat yourself. Get your shoes on. Get out to work. And at night, take a broomstick and beat your mind 100 times. Go to sleep. Stop what you're doing. Now is the time to go to bed. And it's very difficult for me, go to bed early these days because there's so much going on. But I know it's like sometimes if you're not beating your mind, and sometimes you have a nice wife, she'll beat your mind too. Time to go to bed. Come on, go to bed. So yeah, I just have to, in that way. that's the way I see it. I don't know. Maybe someone else has more realizations about that. But yeah, it's a good point.
Can I add something?
Sure.
So I appreciated, really, I didn't know that Gandhi had a darshan with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. I'm going to have to get a hold of that book.
Yeah, he had 10 questions.
It was a nice section you read. Right. And although you gave some references, quote, I'm going to give the quote. On December 23rd, this is a few days before his passing, Srila Prabhupada gave his final instruction to the assembled devotees. It's longer. This is an excerpt. I mean, it's wonderful to read the whole thing, but this is a nice excerpt. I have caused anxiety for many people. Perhaps many people have considered me their enemy because I was compelled to tell the unadulterated truth. I asked them to serve the Lord with all sincerity. I have given much anxiety to many people only because I wanted to inspire them to serve Krishna sincerely, without material desire and duplicity. One day, they will understand this. And I think that day has come, through his glorious disciple, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Swami. But other disciples, we shouldn't disrespect any disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Swati Thakur. They're in our Guru Varga, by the way. They have to say this because something happened on class recently. Srila Prabhupada was on a morning walk in Vrindavan, and Harikesh Swami at the time basically quoted Prabhupada accurately by calling Ban Maharaj a black snake. Well, here's what Prabhupada did. He stopped everyone, and he looked at Harikesh Swami and he said, "You are 5 or 6 years out of a meat-eating family, and you can say that about a lifelong Vaishnava? I can say, but you can't say." So this would help. Will help our humility. We have a samskara, many of us, most of us, of coming out of meat-eating families, and that samskara is called malecha. Okay, but we're becoming devotees, and that's a good thing. By the grace of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada and our Srila Prabhupada. And I want to mention something about the actual disappearance, because there's a tremendous charm to this, what happened right after. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada left this world at 5:30 in the morning it was a Thursday, on January 1st, and it was in Bagh Bazar Gaudiya Math. I heard the clock stopped in the Math at that precise moment. The clock, some mystical thing happened where the clock stopped at 5:30 in the Math. A few minutes before, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada came out of his deep meditation and asked, "Who is there?" And they had servants taking care of him at his bedside. And at that moment, his servant replied, "It's me, Pranavananda Prabhupada." And Pranavananda Brahmachari, who would later become Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, then asked, "How are you feeling, Prabhupada?" And Prabhupada replied, "What can I say? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna." And those were his last words. Of course, there was loud sobbing and chanting throughout the Math as the devotees performed the Vedic rites with great care. They bathed Srila Prabhupada in sandalwood water. Then they dressed him in new clothes and decorated him with flowers, garlands, and sandalwood. Crying incessantly, they put tilak on 12 parts of his body. Then Srila Prabhupada was laid on a new bed in front of the deities. The devotees circumambulated him and performed puja, bhoga, and arti to him with tumultuous kirtan. Thousands of people started coming to have their last darshan of Srila Prabhupada. Flowers and tears were everywhere. Then Srila Prabhupada was taken to Shelda Station amid a Sankirtan procession of thousands of people. A devotee of Srila Prabhupada arranged for a special train. The train was fully occupied with thousands of devotees. Both men and women. The destination was Krishnanagar. All the way from Calcutta to Krishnanagar, thousands of people were waiting at every station to see Srila Prabhupada. The devotees were displaying photos of Srila Prabhupada from the windows of the train, and the crowds were offering flowers to those pictures. At Krishnanagar station, all the high government officials were waiting to offer their obeisances to him. Then he was taken to Navadvip by car, and they crossed the Ganga on boats to arrive at Mayapur. A big crowd was already waiting at Mayapur. Of course, he was placed in Samadhi at the Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, the headquarters. And it was near the Samadhi he had arranged for Shuras Babaji Maharaj. And Srila Maharaj remarked that his body was being covered with salt, and they were having their last glimpse of his form. He looked so dignified as he did in his life. So I thought I'd just add that.
That was wonderful, Vidyaga. Unfortunately, we didn't get everything, but pretty much. Your connection's not too good. But thank you very much. That was wonderful.
Jai. Thank you.
Oh, really?
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, Gaudacandra Prabhu, that was a wonderful class. I just lament I was not able to read faster.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't want to. It would have been too long, or it would have been later if I would have read everything. But it's all there. You guys could. I guess I could email it to you or something. Or how should I do it?
Yeah, that would be nice. Send me the PDF, then I can post both the video, the audio, and the PDF on for today's class. That would be very nice.
It's like 10 megabytes, I think. So
it's okay.
Should be okay. Okay. All right. I emailed it to myself. I would just forward it to you. I guess I have your email. Yeah, you sent me an email, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I just forward to the same.
Okay. So,
well, that was very, very nice. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you, Vidyaga, for that wonderful contribution.
Gaudacandra Prabhu, I want to really thank you. It was very, very enlivening and wonderful, the powerful presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Very nice, Gaudacandra. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much. All glories to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Haribol.
Hare Krishna.